started and ran a mortgage banker here in San Diego. I've been involved in all different facets of the industry. Also, we do private money loans in addition to institutional. And in addition to my interest in the mortgage industry, I'm also on the board of the San Diego County Credit Union, which is based here in San Diego. Well, we're starting to finally see the first green shoots of some alternative products to what's been around for the past several years. It was great that government programs expanded and took over a very important vacuum that was in the lending environment. But we're finally starting to see the private industry get a little more girth, width, and wingspan and start to go back to some of the programs that expanded on what the government has to offer. Specifically, we're beginning to see where programs are now taking into account that not everyone had a short sale as a criminal, and that there are a lot of people in the past several years who ran into unforeseeable and unavoidable circumstances that are actually very, very good borrowers. So things are starting to expand and go back. The jumbo programs specifically are starting to grow, which means that the private sector is starting to feel a little more confident as banks start to have healthier balance sheets. They're doing a lot of jumbo lending, and in fact, as some of us have seen, some jumbo programs are priced better than government agency programs. So we're starting to see that. We're starting to see a return to some availability for foreign nationals. That program was very hard to come by for many, many years, except in the private sector. We do also do private loans at C2, and so we were able to provide that. But in general, we're just beginning to see a little more robust marketplace that hopefully will allow you as realtors and as mortgage professionals to qualify and bring more people into homes. The one absolutely critical mantra, caveat that is important to remember is that when you're going out with a client, they really need to be approved before you take them out. It's so tempting. They just want to see a few houses, then they want to see a few more, then they want to see a few more, and then pretty soon you're putting in an offer, and a lot of time is at stake, but really in fairness to the clients, both your buying clients and to the sellers, listing agents, to yourselves, everyone in the transaction, there are people out there, and as we've mentioned here, the landscape has changed quite a bit. Now it may be loosening up, but one thing is for sure, we're going to cover it in further questions, there's a lot of time imperative. We're in a seller's market. The one thing that I would say above all is make sure that your buyers, it's tempting to let them tell you, I'm totally approved, I can buy whatever I want. And that may be so, that would be awesome news. But too many times we see people who then have incredible time factors, they have contingencies they can't meet. It's stressful as it is. I mean, we know that being in real estate and mortgage, it's always a stressful process in the transaction. So we can take a big piece of that away by knowing that the buyer, the borrower, is qualified, is approved. Their credit, even people say, my credit's perfect, don't worry about it. Well, hey, what's this? Oh, it's just a little, delinquency, or I forgot about this, forgot about that, medical collection. There are so many, as Teresa said, there's no secrets anymore, so there are lots of things that are coming up that could trip somebody up. So do everyone a favor, take a big piece of the stress out and make sure that your clients, buyers, borrowers, are getting pre-approved. And I mean not just, well, I told someone, what my income was. Let us take them all the way through the process. Let us run a desktop on them. If they don't qualify for a desktop, we know early on we have alternative programs. But again, the mantra is make sure, for everybody's sake in the transaction, including sellers, and make sure that they are pre-approved and that they can buy that house, that price range, and close in the period of time that you're speccing on the purchase agreement. Well, government and politicians are always well-meaning, and they need to clean up and improve things. But I have a favorite saying, and it's that you can't legislate morality. Now, there were definitely excesses, and some of the programs that were around in the heyday were just completely absurd. Any mortgage industry veteran would have said and did say, a lot of these programs make absolutely no sense, and we got as far away from them as we could. That's why we're still here sitting in front of you. So government is well-meaning, and government has a place. I don't think that the government really handled the whole crisis well for political reasons. Instead of really just reaching out to help people where it made sense, it just became very willy-nilly. We all know of clients, friends, people who've really been hurt, who were told one thing and then they did that, and then something else happened. They lost their home because someone said, don't make payments. So the government, involvement has not been overly positive in terms of people who've lost homes and had difficulties. On the other hand, without the government involvement, I don't believe we'd be sitting here today. I know there are people who feel that, well, we didn't need any of that. I don't know if they know how close we were teetering. We're still not that far from the edge. And it's not just the budget crisis. This is like a worldwide phenomenon that just was the perfect storm. If you saw the movie The Perfect Storm, irregardless, it was the perfect storm of combination of factors that all came together for a lot of different reasons, underplayed by greed, etc. So the government had a place in trying to keep the playing field going, but it's made compliance for people who follow the rules, as Teresa was saying, so much more difficult. I don't believe that people who want to break the law care what the law is, whether it's here or here or here. That's been proven by all the people who delivered Ponzi schemes. What they did was illegal then. So I think the government's well-meaning, but I think that hopefully in years to come we're going to see, and I'll just mention this, the CFPB has everyone frightened because they have draconian powers to basically do whatever they want. They're not beholden to Congress. They're basically like a stealth agency when they come in. On the other hand, it's been said that they are interested in protecting the consumer, and if that's really true, we could be a little scared, but we could also feel like, well, hopefully in the end, they're going to see what makes sense. We're going to have disclosures that someone can really read and understand, because, financial professionals, mortgage professionals, you look at the disclosure, we understand it now because we've been through it. I dare anyone, including people who work in government, to understand what that GFE really is designed to say. So over time, I think it'll turn out okay. It's a very, very complex area, and so I'm hoping that the private industry will take up slack, the government will still have its agency programs working, and that will begin to generate a newer sense of prosperity and a return to prosperity that we kind of expect in America, but at least want to work towards. Well, we spoke about it a little bit earlier. I think we're going to see the rise of alternative programs, which include alternative documentation. Our U.S. tax code is highly complex. If you're a W-2 wage earner, it's a little more cut and dry, but we all know high net worth people, high earning people, self-employed people, typically the higher they're earning, the more sophisticated their tax returns. I like to say they have CPAs who have been hired to legally hide their income, and I don't mean that in a bad way. They bury their income in the backyard. That's our tax code. And then I believe that we're going to see a little bit more ability to use bank statements as proof of income. I've always felt 24 months of a borrower's bank statements, business and commercial and personal, are a pretty good indication of what kind of money they actually make. And you can use that. So those are programs that were around. They fell into disfavor because the private industry disappeared. So we're starting to see that. We're starting to see, actually, we just closed last month our first jumbo reverse mortgage in 5 years, 6 years. As many of you know, the reverse industry went through an even harder, it just fell apart in terms of anything but the HECM programs and that type of product. But we now have jumbo reverse mortgages out, which in an area like ours, coastal California, really critical. So we're going to see industry, I think, provide more and more that follow government guidelines. By the way, Teresa alluded to it last week at a training I was at. The acting director, former director of the CFPB, Raj Date, he resigned when they got the permanent Guy Cordry in there. And you know what he's doing? He set up an alternative product through Wall Street. So, there's clearly a big playing field out there, and entrepreneurs, people are going to get into it. They're going to figure out legal, compliant, and hopefully, appropriate ways of creating programs that do help a wide range of borrowers. As you know, not everyone has a W-2 paycheck, and will help ensure that we provide credit to people who are worthy of it, but may not qualify by the narrow definitions we have in today. Commitment is great, a guarantee, bound to get a lot of people in trouble. It's a very, very complex process, as we all know. And on the one hand, everyone on this end wants to get it closed. None of us get paid until there's a transaction completed. On the other hand, it's not like buying a car. Someone can't pull up a truck and kind of take it away if the payments aren't made. There are a lot of guarantees in there for homeowners, etc. So everyone wants to be very, very careful and make sure it's being done according to all the applicable law. I think it's part of the thing of our society. We're just so used to everything instantaneously. Hey, we'll just give you a Twitter approval, we'll tweet it out, and you go close on your home. It just, we're not quite there
Twitter
yet.
approval, that's good.
Yeah, we're bringing it out next
Twitter
week.
approval.com.
Come to Ilan, and we'll give you a Twitter approval. It's good for 30
Teresa loves that
seconds.
stuff.
Violation of privacy there. No Twitter.
So I think anything like that is maybe well-meaning, but again, if you talk to a compliance expert, you understand the pitfalls with something like that. Better to have commitments and everyone know what it takes to close the transaction, as Angela was saying. From the beginning, we're all on the same page, everyone's going to a common goal, and we can do transactions faster without feeling like we're going to ignore things that can come back and hurt everybody on this end of the transaction, which none of us want. We always tell people, first of all, we're not attorneys, we're not tax preparers, we're not CPAs. We know a lot about it, but in the end, they really should consult their own professional for the best advice that may be specific to their situation, especially someone who's prepared their taxes for years and may know things about specifics that we don't. But just piggybacking a little more on what Teresa said about the fine print, that's true also of the waiting periods after foreclosure, after bankruptcy, and what Sam had said about credit reports aren't all accurate. Best thing again is to get it all in there and run a desktop and know, because some of these things will apply to conforming FHA. They won't to a high balance. Some will apply to an agency conforming, not to a conforming jumbo. There's just so many different parts and pieces, and I personally, we have submitted very, very strong borrowers, excellent profiles that had and if anyone was going to get an exemption or a waiver based on their story, an attorney who was in a 6-month doctor-ordered bed rest through a pregnancy in 2011, her husband lost his job in the high-tech industry. He looked around for a while and said, let me go get my teaching credential. 2 years later, she's been back to work, after a few months after the pregnancy. Their income is great, their debt ratios are good, their credit scores are good. And we sent it in, and underwriter said, well, pregnancy is a voluntary thing, you didn't have to get pregnant. And the husband, his choice to go back to school, could have kept looking for work. So I just want to tell everyone, it's great that the government has changed everything, and I just want you to look at the fine print and know that it's case by case, and we just really have to work our way through the myriad of programs, which are, as we've all said here, opening, expanding, coming out, but good to know early on, because I've had clients tell me, oh, I heard it on the news, it's all okay, I'm done. Well, it's not with the desktop approval. As you said, the desktop engine came back with a different story, or in the case of the example I told you, submitted to an underwriter who said, things I told you, which jaw drops and you think, well, if anyone ever had reasons to get an exception, this is it, but I guess that wasn't the case. Underwriters are running scared. They're under a lot of pressure, and so it's all case by case. It's getting better, but again, just have to see what each one comes out to be. Well, I think the same bias extends to FHA buyers. In a market where sellers rule, it's easy for them to just throw out things that, based on old misconceptions. And that's where, again, if the buyer, the borrower, is pre-approved, is ready to go, all the hurdles have been addressed, met, there are none. And as Rachel said, let your lender step in there and present to the listing agent why this is no more difficult. Every loan could have some issues. Even people putting 40% down have issues sometimes if the rest of their file. So it is a misconception, and I think be prepared, have everything in your favor, letters, and also someone waiting to stand by, and tell them they are approved, subject to finding the home. As far as repairs, you can have repair issues anywhere. A good listing agent will have already dealt with potential termites or anything like that. because any buyer could have concerns about that, not just, you know, VA or FHA. So again, the more prepared we all are in the process, the smoother it'll be, and that way we can do what we need to do for our veterans.